Let's take a closer look at the Layers panel and explore the options it gives us. In our Chapter 12 folder, we're going to begin with the file Layers01. Now, much of what we do to layers is going to occur in the Layers panel. We can add a new layer simply by clicking on this Add Layer icon, and there we have Layer 1, a brand new layer. We can duplicate an existing layer simply by clicking on it and dragging it down to the same icon, and now we have a copy of that layer. If we want to get rid of a layer, we can delete it simply by clicking the layer to highlight it and pressing this trash can icon. Photoshop says, do you really want to do this? We'll select yes. You could also delete a layer by clicking it and dragging it to the trash icon, and that will eliminate that Photoshop warning. You can adjust the opacity of layers. With this daisy layer selected, I'm going to click on the word opacity, and instead of 100%, let's type in 50%. Now you can see the bottom image is being allowed to show through at a 50% strength. We'll reset this back to 100. Blending modes here at the top of the Layers panel offer you a number of options for adding creative effects to your images. Let's just take a look at two. If I set this to screen, it blends those two together nicely, similarly to reducing the opacity, but with a bit more subtlety. Let's take a look at a brand new addition to CS5, Divide. That's a cool abstract effect. I'm going to set this back to normal. And I'm going to turn on the hue, saturation, and levels adjustment layers. Right now, the adjustment layers are applying not only to the daisy layer, but to the sky layer. If I turn off daisy temporarily, and you can see that levels is applying to this bottommost layer. But suppose I want these two adjustment layers to only apply to the daisy layer and not spill through. Well, we can do that by creating what's called a clipping mask. I'm going to select both of these adjustment layers, shift click to select the second layer, and in the flyout menu at the top of the Layers panel, I'm going to select Create Clipping Mask. Now look what happens. If I turn this on and off, you can see daisy changing, but that sky along the top of the image is remaining the same. These effects have been clipped so that they end at the layer immediately below them. Adding layers to your images greatly increases their file size, but if we flatten an image, we compress all of this information into a single background layer. And we can flatten simply by going back to the flyout menu and select Flatten Image. All those changes take effect, and they're now a background layer. I'm going to undo that, Control-Z on the Mac, Command-Z on the PC. If we want to merge the layers instead and not create a background layer, we can simply go back to the same menu, and this time select Merge Visible. We've now compressed all of those layers into a single layer, but that layer has not been converted into a background layer. I want to show you another image. Let's close this one, and we don't need to save it. Back in our Chapter 12 folder, let's open Layers02. Notice that even though this image has a single layer, it is not a background layer. There's no padlock icon there, and that's important because we're going to add layer styles, and you cannot do that on a background layer. Let's go up to the Window menu, select Styles, and we have our styles options here. On the flyout menu, I'm going to click and we're going to load some new styles. Let's start with photographic effects for this image. Photoshop asks if we want to replace the contents. That's absolutely okay with us. Now you see all these icons here. These really offer you no help in terms of what the effects are going to do. So let's go back to our flyout menu and select text only. This is much better. Let's see what happens if we select negative. Well, it converts the image to a negative. Sepia tone does exactly what you might expect. Notice that as we click a layer style in the Layers panel, we can see effects show up immediately beneath the layer. Because those effects are in the Layers panel, we can turn them on and off at will, but we can also go down, double click on any of the effects, and we can edit the settings. So these styles are a great starting point, but you could also tweak them to taste. Let's take a look at one more set of styles. We'll go to Image Effects. Again, it's okay for us to replace these. Let's check black and white photo. We've got a blue filter, circular vignette, all these kinds of things. So you've got tons of styles you can cycle through, and styles are nothing more than a collection of layer effects. So you can turn them on and off, and you can edit them to your heart's content. The last thing I want to show you here is very cool. We're going to learn how to create knockout type. Let's close this image. We don't need to save it. And back in our Chapter 12 folder, we are going to open the file titled Knockout. Now in this image, I've got a background layer. I have created a layer effects layer right above it called Brick Wall. We'll turn that on. Now what we're going to do is to create some type and let it knock out this brick wall so that the background image shows through. Let's select the type tool that's in your tools panel. The shortcut is T. I'm selecting the font Arial and black because I want something very bold. You can choose a different font, but you'll get the best results with a typeface that is very, very wide and fat. So I'm going to simply click and type in the word here, clouds. I'm going to type it in all caps. Now that's pretty small for the effect that I want to do, so I'm simply going to click in here with the control key, that would be the command key on the Mac, and you can see the text bounding box, and I'm going to drag this up to expand the text, and I think I want to drag it out on the side as well. There we go. We're going to have something that stretches just about from edge to edge. That looks pretty good. I'll hit the Enter key to commit to that. Now what we want to do is go to our Layers panel, and up in the flyout menu we are going to select Blending Options. Now the very first step here, very important, this will not work if you don't do it, set Fill Opacity down to 0%. Our text is going to temporarily disappear, but under Knockout we want to choose Deep. This will take it all the way down to the background layer. Hit OK, and now you can see that our text, instead of being black, has cut out so that the bottom image can be revealed. And this is still a text layer. We have not rasterized it. We can still move this around. If I simply click with the control key on the PC, that would be the command key on the Mac, I can move it down here. We can move this freely and decide where this looks absolutely best. So there you have it, knockout type that reveals our background layer.